Pigweed here. Today we review a lager and ask, is the federal government too big? Hello and welcome to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crow Hill. Good evening, Crow Hill.
Good evening, Pigweed.
So, what's on your mind?
Well, I was talking to this distraught father the other day about a little incident he had with his son, where he wanted his son to develop some responsibility and, go out and do things. So they live in walking distance of the grocery store.
Okay.
So father gave his son a 20 and said, walk down to the grocery store and get a gallon of milk and walk back and bring me the change.
All right.
So he's, kind of a little anxiously looking out the window for his son to return, and he sees him coming up in an Uber a little while later. And the kid gets out, and he's got a bag, and he comes walking into the house, and the dad's like, "What's going on?" And he says, "I wanted some ice cream." "Well, did you get the milk?" "Well, I got a half a gallon of milk because I didn't have enough to get the ice cream and the milk and these chips."
Okay.
And the dad said, "And who paid for the Uber?" The kid said, "Oh, you have to go out and pay him."
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the lesson here?
Yes. Yeah. You were told you had a job to do.
Right.
And he just decided to do what he wanted to do.
And to blow out the budget.
Blow out the budget. That's right. Spend too much. To spend
more money than you even had.
Yes. And he had too much anyway.
And you had to right, and then you had to appeal to some authority to come bail you out.
Yeah. Drive me home. My dad will pay you when you get out.
I couldn't walk home. The ice cream would melt.
Exactly.
I wasn't supposed to buy in the first place. All right. So what am I drinking?
So this is Ten Eyck, I think is how you pronounce it. Brewery in good old Queenstown, Maryland.
All right.
And it's a Czech Dark Lager. And the name, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly. Tmave Pivo.
They even give you a translation to tell you how we're so clever. We're going to give our Czech Dark Lager a Czech name. They're not even tell you what it means?
No, apparently not.
Okay,
well, that's that. But it's a, Czech Dark Lager. So I'm expecting some noble hops.
Yeah.
And let's see what we get.
Yeah, some maltiness, I would think. I would also be looking for a cleaner finish than you would get on a malty ale.
It's got a nice dark kind of a note to it. Yeah, but I'm not getting the... usually when you think of a Czech lager, you think of Pilsner Urquell or something like that. Yeah. It doesn't remind me of that at all. But it is.
Well,
it is
all
very
those dark grains in there.
It's going to mess that up, yeah. But not a lot of aroma. No. Not a lot of hop flavor. It's perfectly drinkable and good, but not what I expected.
5%.
5%. Nice drinkable beer. Very good. It's just not what I expected, but I like it. Okay, so. Apparently, according to Gallup, 54% of people in America think the government has too much power.
Okay, well, that's low, but...
39% think it's about right. 6% say it has too little power.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yes.
Of course, it's got to be...
Well, got to be some people.
I thought we'd have more than 6% of communists in this country, but that's good to know.
Yes, it's only that much, yes.
Yeah, because that's nuts. So what got me thinking was, I think when I came across the Milton Friedman quote, and I don't know under what circumstances it was, and this is old. These stats are 30 years old.
Okay.
It says in 1945 there were 10 million people deployed on farms. The Department of Agriculture had 80,000 employees. In 1992, there are 3 million people employed on farms. The Department of Agriculture has 122,000 employees. And it just got me thinking, does the federal government always have to grow regardless of the circumstances, even when the people that you serve fall by 2/3?
Yeah.
The department still needs to grow by a third.
You know what it reminds me of? There's this case that's going before the Supreme Court that has to do with, I think it's fishing boats, have to have a government minder on the boat, and the owner of the fishing boat has to pay that person's salary.
Okay. I think we're squarely into too much government.
Now, it's just this recent catastrophe in Baltimore.
Yeah.
There was apparently supposed to be somebody from the Maryland Department of Transportation on the ship as they're leaving the harbor. And
I thought they were guided by tugboats.
They are
until they got beyond the bridge, because then there's nothing to run into. Okay, you're out. Or was it going out? It was coming in.
No, but it was going out. It was leaving the harbor, going under the bridge. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So you guide them out with some tugboats, and then once you clear the bridge,
apparently they only guided them for a little while and then let them go. But it's just this idea. It kind of reminds me of when I read, was it Hunt for Red October? That every Soviet submarine had to have a party member, communist party member on the ship, making sure everything. That's kind of what we got. You've got to have the government guy sitting there on the boat, making sure that you're following all the rules.
Yeah.
Is that what we want?
No, it's not what we want. And now we have. Now that's been replaced by, in every corporation has a guy from HR.
Yes.
Looking over everybody's shoulder, making sure they're saying the right things and towing the party line.
Hiring the right percentages of this kind of person.
And make sure there's no, discussions that could be hurtful to anybody.
Yeah, so imagine you live in a neighborhood and you have a homeowners association, and there are 3 people in the homeowners association, and now they want to have 20 people in the homeowners association. What are those other 17 people going to be doing? They're going to be minding where you plant your plants, how big your bushes are. Yeah. They're going to be in your stuff all the time. Yeah. So what else are they going to do?
You got to justify your job.
Yeah.
And if you run around going, I don't see any problems, then they're going to go, well, then why do you have a job? So right, I mean, so
wouldn't it be nice if that was the truth? If when they discovered that there wasn't anything to do, that job would be eliminated.
Yeah, but that incentivizes the person to make sure that there is something to do.
Yes.
Right? So I see. There's where I work. I always see there's a code enforcement SUV that drives around. So that's what he's doing, right? Yeah. He's looking at people's mailboxes,
making sure they're following code. That's right.
Yes, but more is not always better.
No,
is it? So I'm seeing. We keep talking about this massive spike in our debt. The government spending so much more money. I mean, this little chart you had.
Yes.
It's been creeping up. From like 75 to 2000, and then it just spikes in spending. So my assumption is, I mean, the only thing I could think of was, my gosh, I was tying it into the Milton Friedman quote, right? Well, we're growing the size of the government. We're buying more office buildings to put more people in them, and that's where and it costs money for the buildings and for the salaries and stuff like that. So I figured. There must be a hockey stick curve similar to the spending with the number of federal employees.
Yeah, but it doesn't work out that way.
It didn't.
When you look at the spending, it's astonishing how much. If you change, like 1975, the numbers aren't real clear on here, but it's maybe something like the federal spending was $1 billion or something, and then you get to modern times, and it's 10 times that much.
Yeah, yes. It's 10, yes. The most recent budget that they're fighting about is 1.4
trillion.
With a T.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was 1,000 times.
Oh, I'm sorry. This was thousands of billions. So that would have been a trillion. And then now it's up to 10 trillion or something. So it is astonishing. But you're right. If you look at the number of employees, so before World War II, the federal government was relatively small. Right. And there's a massive increase in federal employees during World War II. And it dropped down a bit. And then it's been climbing steadily, but not dramatically.
It's not that different than 1944, right? Right now we have let's just say 3 million federal employees, which is what we had in 1944. And it dropped in the 50s and But so that isn't where the extra trillions of dollars
are going.
So where are they going?
Right. I don't know. But if you look at the federal debt, public debt as a percentage of GDP, despite the fact that we're spending this extraordinary amount of money, we also have more and more debt.
Yes.
So we're collecting more money, we're spending more money, and we have more and more debt. So the problem is bad on both ends. We're spending more and we're getting more and more in debt at the same time.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. I mean,
but this is the mentality that everything must grow all the time, like going back to the Department of Agriculture, is a problem.
Yeah.
It's as if asking if the government came out and said, we're asking for less money than if the president said, I want Congress to pass this bill with less money than the year before, that's unheard of.
Right.
What are you talking about? There's no place to cut.
It reminds me of, I heard an interview with Carly Fiorina on the radio driving home one night, and she was talking about the way budgeting works in the private sector, that every department has to justify its budget every year, and that some groups get bigger and some groups get smaller. Like you have some department for printing LPs, well, that department gets smaller, and the department for printing CDs gets bigger, and then that department gets smaller, and the department for printing microchips gets bigger. Like things change over time because the world changes. But apparently in the federal government, it doesn't work like that. Whatever your budget was last year, that's your budget this year plus some amount of increase.
Yes, and back to incentives, when the fiscal year is coming around, whoever's running it goes, oh my gosh,
we better spend.
We better spend, or we're not going to get as much money next year. Why not give the guy a bonus? The top whatever group of people that make these decisions for cutting 10%.
Yeah.
Why is there this impulse we have to go out and spend the money here? This one was really good. This is from October 2023, and it said during the pandemic when everybody was working from home. Between 2020 and 2022, federal agencies spent $3.3 billion on office furniture.
Okay, right. And they didn't send it to people's houses.
No, they got...
they put it in buildings that nobody was in. They might not have even got the actual furniture. They might have just spent the money and...
They spent $237,000 on solar-powered picnic tables for the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention and $120,000 on luxurious Ethanol leather recliners for the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad.
There you go.
Okay, so, yes, so the more people... this would be the chance for people to go, hey, nobody's at work... Can we not spend money on furniture?
But there's no incentive to do that. The incentives are all wrong. The incentives are backwards. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess one of the things, the little story I told in the beginning was to get to the idea of what is the government supposed to be doing? In my story, the kid was supposed to go buy a gallon of milk.
Yeah.
Well, what is the federal government supposed to do? And has it gone beyond that mandate? So apparently... Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution says what the government is supposed to be doing, and that would include things like defense and military, post offices and post roads, international affairs, the federal judiciary, debt payments, and interstate commerce. Those are the things that are clearly delegated powers.
Right.
And then things that are not necessarily authorized would be social welfare programs, federal education funding, regulatory agencies like the EPA or the FCC, and then infrastructure spending like local roads and mass transit and building bridges in Baltimore.
Yeah, there are federal highways. There's the ones with the little blue symbols on them. I-70.
Yes.
That's federal. What about? Let me see. So what we've added to that, we've added national parks.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's let me see, constitutionally endorsed. What things that I think that where the federal government belongs.
Other things would fit in, like NASA would fit in under defense and military, for example.
Right. International Affairs, Federal Judiciary.
But things like the Department of Education, where did that come from? There's no constitutional justification for the Department of Education. Or these other ones that it mentions on here, the EPA. Was it Carter invented the EPA and...
You know what? It was Nixon.
Was it? Okay, Nixon. Yeah. Right. Carter was the one who did the education, Department of Education.
Yes, so the Department of Education is $45 billion with 4,000 employees established in 1980, yes. Department of Energy,
do you remember that scene?
$24 billion with 15,000 employees.
Do you remember that embarrassing scene where the guy from Texas who was running for president said he wanted to eliminate 3 departments, and they said which one, and he couldn't mention which 3 they were.
No.
that was very embarrassing.
Yeah, that's tough. So here we've got... all right, so hold on. What were my numbers here from...
This is agriculture you're talking
agriculture.
about.
So
right.
Milton Friedman, this is in 92, he said that there were 122,000. All right, well, they've made some cuts.
Okay, well,
Since
that's
92 to, last year, it's down to 85,000.
Now, didn't you send me some...
$134 billion.
Didn't you send me some numbers on all, if you were to take all the federal employees and how much they make and what that total was, and how much you could get out of the federal budget if you just, cut 20% of them or something?
Yeah, well, that's... This guy... Oops. Well, first off, the average salary is $94,000 a year.
Okay, that's the average.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Roughly 3 million federal employees. Yes, that means we've got 300
trillion.
Billion.
That's 1,000 million billion. 300 billion. Yes.
In salaries, not counting health and healthcare plans. That's another 20. That is, if you did not cut the federal government, if you did not cut the military, you could cut half of the rest of the government and save
$1 billion.
Well, I think we're out. Are we out to $1 trillion here?
Let's see. 1,000 million billion. Yeah, $1.2 trillion right. In 4 years.
Right, but they're doing so. They're so busy doing so much good that you couldn't possibly.
Of course, they're all doing.
Until I found this article. Now, okay, granted, this is a year old.
Okay.
But he's saying that while everybody else, so this is 2023.
Okay.
Pretty much, the public sector is back to work. It said only 1 in 3 federal bureaucrats were on the job. And he acknowledged, look, it doesn't mean just they're working remotely doesn't mean that they're not working.
Yeah.
But really, if the federal government has not shown up for work yet, and nobody's noticed, don't you think there's a little fat there that could be trimmed?
Remember when there was a threat of a government shutdown? When Reagan was president.
Yeah.
And all of his staff was all afraid, and they were all, oh no, what's going to happen? And Reagan, I think it was Bill Bennett was recounting this story, and he said, Reagan pulled him aside and said, just shut it down and see if anybody notices.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. What if... So again, so now you've got the fear of the government shutdown. That certain departments won't even, will be shut down, and others will just be reduced to essential personnel. Like, well,
just keep those people.
Just keep those people.
Like if the Department of Commerce shut down, would we even notice?
Would you even notice? Let me see. Department of Commerce. Let's see what they're pulling in these days. They're spending $15 billion a year with 50,000 people.
Yeah. Okay. What are they doing?
Right. Is
anybody even asking?
This is business. Right. All business will stop if the Department of Commerce is not on the job.
There won't be any commerce. We won't be able to buy anything.
Making sure that people are buying and selling products.
Yeah, because I wouldn't.
What the hell are they doing?
I wouldn't know how to buy anything if it weren't for the Department of Commerce helping me out. Yeah. So obviously there has to be room for trimming some of these things. It's like any organization. If you ran a business whatever you're spending money on today, 5 years from now, it's going to have to change. You're going to be spending less on some things and more on other things. And I don't see that. I just see this.
Where's Carly Fiorito?
Yeah, I see this perpetual entitlement to be spending money in all these different areas, in the Department of Transportation, and the Department of Education, and all these.
And
other
what would
things.
you care? I mean, if you were when the fiscal year is coming up and you're rushing out to spend all the money that's in your budget for fear of not getting as much next year, you're not getting it personally. You have a salary. What is this?
Why do you care?
Yeah, why do you care?
Probably because it might mean you have to lay some people off, and you don't want to have to do that. So you better spend some money.
Can we congratulate the guy who lays people off?
We should. There ought to be a commission or a department or something to say, let's find ways to trim these budgets rather than making them bigger.
And then the reaction is, so you asked for more trillions than God could print, and Republicans balk in the slightest. And
they're against government or something.
What do they say? What do they say when they go, your job is to fund the government. You're not doing your job.
Yeah.
Your
job is to fund the government appropriately.
Your job is to give the president whatever, any amount of money that he wants. Then what is the point of having the Congress control the purse strings?
Right. Yes. Yeah. There's so many things that are broken. But the thing is, I think even if we eliminated all of these federal departments, we're still spending tons of money. I think we're spending, obviously, defense. The Department of Defense is one of the ones on here, but we're spending a lot on defense. We're spending a lot on servicing our debt. Mm-hmm. We're spending a lot on social programs. We're spending a lot of money in areas that aren't necessarily, like, we could get rid of the Department of Education, and it's not going to change this radical curve of more and more spending.
No, it's not, and it's not going to change the downward decline of the education of our children either.
So I saw some great.
stat. It might change the downward.
I saw some great stat on in 1980. You said the Department of Education was founded 1980. Yeah. In 1980, the United States was number 1 or number 2 in the world in education. And then we started the Department of Education and spent however much money, and now we're number 30 or something. So it's clearly not working. Whatever they did with the Department of Education.
Yes, and just the general mentality of getting the federal government involved.
Yeah, and that's going to make things better.
As making things better. Hold on, I've got a fine example.
Now, there are things where the federal government getting involved is necessary. There are certain things the federal government should and ought to do, and that's fine. But we just had this attitude of more and more government is better and better, and more spending. It's an addiction. We got to stop it.
Yeah, where is my? Here we go. Here's a case where we've decided the government. Some powers have decided that what we need to save the planet is more EVs. Mm-hmm. So, you get the federal government to lead the way. Yeah. This is a case where, right? So we need innovation. So where do you get most of your innovation from? Some big fat bureaucratic federal program, right?
Yeah.
Or do you get it from appealing to private industry? Well. The problem with the EVs is there aren't enough chargers. So we got the government involved, which is good. We spent $7.5 billion 3 years ago to create 500,000 EV chargers. And how many did we get?
They built less than 10?
Yes.
How is that even possible? How is that even possible?
It's just... Right. I mean, are they still doing environmental studies? Are they still doing,
Now, there are times where government, public-private partnerships and things like NASA did a lot of cool things. There are times when the government does good stuff. So I'm not trying to say, government bad, private industry good is always the answer. But you can't have this continual increase in the budget, continual increase in what the federal government's doing with no reference to the Constitution, with no reference to delegated powers. Right. You just can't have this constant bloat. There has to be a limit.
And like you were saying about with no reference to how private industry works.
Yes.
Right? So no accountability, no proving, no way to prove, like the Department of Education. If all right, we're going to do this to improve that. When thing X gets worse, isn't it time to reevaluate what we're doing here? No, it needs to grow bigger. So that's how government works.
Yeah.
It's like, we got a problem to solve. It's gonna, but all we need $1 million. You make it worse. Well, that's because we didn't spend $3 million.
Yes.
Right?
That
That's
is what
the
happens.
nature.
Wouldn't it have been nice when they started the Department of Education to say, okay, we're going to start this experiment.
Yes,
And-
call it an experiment.
And if in 5 years we don't see noticeable improvement, done. Wouldn't that be nice?
Isn't that,
I mean, that's the way a business would run.
That's how a business would do it. They're
Yeah.
going, all right, we need to solve this widget problem.
Yeah.
We're going to start institute this, right?
Yeah, we're gonna try this new product line. We're gonna try this new thing, and we're gonna invest some money into it. And then if it works, it works.
And
And
you
if it
go,
doesn't, we say, well, we stop that.
Yeah. And we learned some things along the way. We
Yeah.
learned that this is not the right way to do it, so we're going to cut this, and we'll find you guys some other jobs. But no, you don't double down, triple down.
That's the way it goes. Yeah, the reason it didn't work is because you didn't spend enough.
All right. So if you go full libertarian,
Yeah.
who would look at your list of and say, really, you know what the government should do? National defense and White House tours and the government printing office, right? I mean, that's how they. So we've got.
I'm not even sure if they want the government running the currency.
And
Some
you're right,
libertarians can be pretty radical. So.
Well, speaking of radical, how about our buddy Javier Milei
Yes.
in Argentina? And he says the state does not create wealth; the state destroys it. The state can give you nothing because it produces nothing.
Now, how long did it take him to balance the budget?
Yeah. So in a couple of weeks. So in the first. After 18 days, let's give his list of accomplishments.
Eliminated 12 out of 21 cabinet posts, fired 5,000 government employees, ended 380,000 government regulations, banned woke language in the military. Gosh, we need that. Bill to affirm the right to self-defense. Bill to
Nice.
legalize homeschooling of kids. Proposal to punish all riot organizers. Well, I would... Riot. Okay, riot. Yeah, you can't have riots. Protests. You can have protests, but not riots. Future welfare cuts for road blocking. I don't know what that means.
I mean, I think like the riot organizers who are out there who are protesting against him, who by blocking the roads, yes, well, you
don't get welfare anymore.
ever.
Okay. Legalizing paying contracts in Bitcoin.
Interesting.
Privatization of state-run companies and opened up the Argentina oil industry. Now, I'm not sure that I endorse everything that this guy did, but the thing is, there were desperate times.
After you've done the complete opposite of this, when back in the 20s and 30s, when it was a positively wealthy nation, and then the leftists came along and said, "I know what we could do with this wealth."
Spend more money. Yeah.
Yes, until you spent the country into the dirt.
Yes.
Yeah.
There comes a time where things are so bad that you have to take a radical correction. And I remember one time I was listening to this guy who was a pilot, and he was saying that basically when you have there's a small problem, you do a small correction. When there's a big problem, you do a big correction.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
That's the basic rule of flying an airplane.
Yeah. Right.
And
So when your country is in the dumps and your inflation is out of control,
tinkering with the edges.
Yes, nibbling about the edges.
It's not going to solve it. You got to go in and do some serious stuff, and he did some serious stuff, and only time will tell how well that turns out. But
all right, I would like to present to you the Ben Franklin Players.
Oh, okay.
Doing a dramatic reading.
Those boys are good.
Yes, and I'll be playing the role of Benito Mussolini.
Ah, good.
And you play the role of Javier Milei.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
So these are our lines here.
Okay, here we go. All right.
So Benito Mussolini. I'm going to see if I can not screw up an Italian accent.
Okay.
Everything in the state, nothing outside of the state, and nothing against the state.
I wipe my ass with the state.
Well done. Well done. Yes. So those are two different approaches.
Different approaches.
For guys who could be considered on the right.
Yes.
Right? I mean, people say that libertarians, depending how you look at them, they could go either way. But let's just you've got two right-wing approaches here. One is
fascism is a strange combination of left and right. But yes, well, I don't know. I'd like to see what happens with Milei and how Argentina does. But you can't just let things keep going the way they're going.
I've got my eye on them. We'll see how things go, over the next year. But I'm rooting for him. All right, so I would say yes. If you're asking the question,
is the federal government? Yes, it is too big.
It's too big.
Too big. Spends too much.
Get out of people's businesses.
Yes.
Now we have seen what is the standard PNC principle as it comes to government? Where should power lie?
Generally speaking, power should be pushed down local as much as possible.
Yeah, so I would say we're not, or I'm not saying that we need to go full libertarian, get all government out, but as local government increases in power, federal government decreases in power, and I feel like that exchange is something I could get on board with.
Unfortunately, that's not what's happening. If you look at the chart, the chart of, we said that the number of federal employees hasn't changed dramatically.
Not really.
But if you look at the number of total government employees, it's up.
Right.
So,
and then where are they coming from?
State and local.
State and local.
Yeah. More and more regulators and nannies and do-gooders and busybodies trying to tell us what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, the HOAs.
I don't feel as if life is that much better now than it was 20 years ago.
No, you just
more and more minders.
Yeah, more and more minders, more people on the government teat, and all right.
More money being spent not producing anything. All right. So there you have it. Reduce the size of the government.
All right.
Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.